The primary flight display, or PFD, consists of an electronic display of flight instruments. The PFD usually shows on the outboard display unit. Let's first look at the captain's display. The captain's primary flight display unit shows airspeed, attitude, altitude, and vertical speed. Marker beacons, flight mode annunciations, or FMAs, heading and track indications also show on the outboard display unit. These displays are discussed in other lessons. The first officer's primary flight display shows the same information as the captain's. Airspeed Mach indications show on the left side of the captain and first officer's primary flight displays. The airspeed digital counter shows current airspeed. The Mach digital counter shows current Mach when the airspeed is greater than 0.4 Mach. The selected speed and speed bug shows target airspeed. Both indications are manually set with the speed selector on the mode control panel or are automatically set to computed FMC target speed when the IAS Mach window is blank. The mode control panel and the IAS Mach controls are on the glare shield. The speed selector changes the IAS Mach display, selected speed, and speed bug. Turn the selector to set 300 knots in the IAS Mach display. The speed bug moves to the new target airspeed. With the auto throttle engaged, the airspeed increases to the new airspeed. You push the changeover switch to change the display from IAS to Mach. The IAS Mach display now shows the target Mach. Let's look at other airspeed indications. The start of the alternating red and black bar shows the maximum speed. The maximum speed is the lowest of VMO/MMO, landing gear down, or flap placard limit speed. When the flaps are up, the start of the amber bar shows the maximum maneuvering speed. This is the speed at which high-speed buffet occurs at high altitude. When the flaps are not up, the start of the amber bar shows the next flap position limit speed. This is the maximum speed for the next flap position. The next flap position speed bar is removed when you move the flap lever to a landing flap setting. The top of the red and black bar shows the minimum speed. It is the speed at which stick shaker occurs. The top of the amber bar shows the minimum maneuvering speed. At this speed, you can bank the airplane up to 40 degrees before stick shaker occurs. Now let's look at failure flags. If the selected airspeed data is invalid, the Select Speed Failure flag shows, and the speed bug is removed. If the stick shaker speed or maximum operating speed is inoperative, the speed limit failure flag shows. If the airspeed indicator fails completely, the display shows the speed failure flag. Let's look at pre-flight and takeoff with these dispatch conditions. At airplane power-up, the airspeed indicator shows a magenta speed bug at the MCP default speed of 100 knots. A white V2 15 bug shows at the default speed of 115 knots. Right now the V2 15 bug is not in view. An amber no V-speed indication shows. Put in the zero fuel weight on the perf-init page. The FMC calculates the takeoff gross weight and will show the green up bug at the flaps up maneuvering speed. Right now the green up bug is not in view. The remaining items on the perf-init page have been put in for you, and the page has been executed. Now select the takeoff ref page. Put in V1. The V1 bug is set and the no V-speed indication is removed. Right now the V1 bug is not in view. Put in VR. The VR bug is set. Right now the VR bug is not in view. Put in V2. Enter this data into the correct line. There is no change to the airspeed indicator when V2 is added in the FMC. Turn the IAS Mach selector on the mode control panel to set V2 on the airspeed indicator. The magenta speed bug parks at the top of the airspeed indicator. Now, move the flap lever to set flaps 5 for takeoff. A bug is set for the first flap retraction after takeoff. Right now this bug is off scale. All airspeed bugs are now set for takeoff. If the FMC is inoperative, you use the speed reference selector to set the airspeed bugs for takeoff. The speed reference selector is a two-knob control. The outer knob selects the type of bug, and the inner knob sets the bug value. The inner knob has two slew speeds and is spring-loaded to center. Slow slew changes the speed or weight by increments of 1 knot or 1,000 pounds. Fast slew changes the speed or weight by increments of 10 knots or 10,000 pounds. Now, let's look at the same pre-flight conditions as before. Turn the outer knob to V1. The default speed of 80 knots is shown on the airspeed indicator. Use the inner knob to set 125 knots. The V1 bug parks at the top of the airspeed indicator. Turn the outer knob to VR. The default speed of 80 knots shows on the airspeed indicator. Use the inner knob to set 127. The VR bug is set. Right now it is not in view. You set V2 on the mode control panel. The magenta airspeed cursor parks at the top of the airspeed indicator. The V2 plus 15 bug is set and is out of view. Now, turn the outer knob to weight. The default weight of 70,000 pounds shows on the airspeed indicator. Use the inner knob to set the takeoff gross weight. You must set the takeoff gross weight, not the zero fuel weight. The green up bug shows at the flaps up maneuvering speed off scale. If the outer knob is turned to VREF, invalid entry shows. The approach VREF speed cannot be set on the ground. You turn the outer knob to the bug 5 position to set one more white bug. It is your decision where to set the bug. You turn the outer knob to Set to remove the digital readout on the airspeed indicator. When you move the flap lever to the takeoff flap setting, a bug is set for the first flap retraction after takeoff. Right now, this bug is off scale. The airspeed bugs are again set for takeoff. Now, let's look at airspeed indications during takeoff. After liftoff, the V1 bug and VR bug are removed. Also, the minimum speed bar shows. At flap retraction altitude, start to retract the flaps. For this example, set flaps 1. The V2 plus 15 bug is removed, and the minimum maneuvering speed bar shows. Increase the speed to flaps up maneuvering speed. As the speed increases to the next airspeed bug, continue to retract the flaps. For this example, set flaps up. All flap bugs except the up bug are removed when flaps are up. If FMC operations are normal, the up bug moves as fuel is used and the gross weight decreases. Let's look at the airspeed indications during approach and landing. The initial speed reduction for approach is started automatically by the FMS or by the pilot with the speed selector on the mode control panel. You use the approach ref page to tell the FMC the flap setting for landing. If you push the init ref key during the descent or approach, the approach ref page shows immediately. Push the init ref key now. The VREF speeds for the 3 landing flap settings are shown for the current gross weight. Copy the flaps 30 speed to the scratch pad. Push the line select key again to set the speed in the CDU. The VREF speed is now shown in large characters on the CDU. The green VREF bug and the white VREF plus 15 bug are set. Right now the bugs are off scale. The set VREF speed does not automatically change as gross weight changes. You must set a new VREF speed for a new gross weight if a large amount of fuel was used. First, delete the current VREF speed. A new speed shows. Enter the speed as you did before. The VREF and VREF plus 15 bugs are set at their new values. Again, the bugs are off scale. If the FMC is inoperative, you use the speed reference selector to set the current gross weight and the VREF speed bugs. Turn the outer knob to weight. Use the inner knob to set the current gross weight of 127,000 pounds. The green up bug moves to the flaps up maneuvering speed for the new gross weight. Now turn the outer knob to VREF. Use the inner knob to set 136 knots. The green VREF bug and white VREF plus 15 bug are set to their new values. the bugs are off scale. If the outer knob is turned to V1 or VR, invalid entry is shown. You cannot set V1 and VR in flight. You turn the outer knob to set to remove the digital readout on the airspeed indicator. Now let's look at the approach. In this example, the FMC is available and VREF is set. As airspeed is decreased for landing, you extend the flaps. Decrease airspeed to flaps up maneuvering speed and set flaps 1. The flaps 1 bug shows. Decrease airspeed to flaps 1 speed and set flaps 5. The flaps 5 bug shows. Decrease airspeed to flaps 5 speed. As you prepare for landing, lower the gear and set flaps 15. The flaps 15 bug does not show if the calculated airspeed is within 4 knots of VREF. In this example, the two speeds are only 4 knots different from each other. Decrease airspeed to the flaps 15 speed if the flaps 15 bug is shown. If the flaps 15 bug is not shown, decrease speed to VREF plus 5. In this example, decrease the airspeed to 141 knots. Set landing flaps. Maintain VREF plus 5 on the approach. All numbered flap bugs are removed when the flap lever is moved to the landing flap setting selected on the approach ref page. Now, let's look at the airspeed indications during a go-around. At go-around power, set flaps 15. Normally, the flaps 15 and flaps 5 bugs show. If the flaps 15 airspeed is within VREF plus 4, the flaps bug does not show. At flap retraction altitude, retract the flaps as you did during takeoff. Increase airspeed to flaps up maneuvering speed. At VREF plus 15, set flaps 5. At flaps 5 speed, set flaps 1. At flaps 1 speed, set flaps up. Increase airspeed as required. The flap bugs are removed when the flaps are up. The green up bug, VREF bug, and VREF plus 15 bug stay in view. The electronic attitude indicator is the same as a conventional attitude indicator, but with some added features. The bank indicator shows bank angle.
Bank angle, bank angle.
The indicator fills and turns amber when the bank angle is 35 degrees or more. The slip skid indicator is below the bank indicator. The indicator fills for large displacements. A pitch limit indication, or PLI, shows the pitch angle at which stick shaker occurs. The PLI is shown when flaps are not up. The flight director shows pitch and roll commands from the AFDS. The flight director is shown when the related flight director switch is in the on position and command steering is available. Now, move the captain's flight director switch to off. The flight director is not shown when the related flight director switch is in the off position or when command steering is not available. The flight path vector symbol is shown when the flight path vector switch is pushed on the EFIS control panel. The flight path vector symbol shows flight path angle relative to the horizon line and drift angle relative to the airplane symbol. The symbol is bright when the flight director is not shown, and dim when the flight director is shown. Conventional localizer and glide slope information are shown if an ILS frequency is tuned and received. The localizer pointer shows localizer position in relation to the airplane's position. The scale expands when localizer deviation is slightly more than 1/2 dot. The scale turns amber and the pointer flashes to show large localizer deviation. The glide slope pointer shows glide slope position in relation to the airplane's position. The scale turns amber and the pointer flashes to show a glide slope deviation greater than 1 dot. Radio altitude approach minimums are shown when the EFIS control panel minimums selector is set to radio. You turn the inner knob to set the approach minimums. Set 200 feet now. Radio altitude is shown below 2,500 feet AGL. A rising runway is shown when the localizer pointer is in view and the radio altitude is less than 2,500 feet AGL. The radio altitude display and approach minimums change color as the radio altitude descends through the selected minimums. The rising runway moves up to the airplane symbol below 200 feet radio altitude. Now let's look at failure flags. Failure flags are shown if the radio altitude display fails, the flight director fails, or the flight path vector display fails. The related display is also removed. Pitch or roll comparator flags are shown if the captain's and first officer's pitch or bank angle displays differ from each other by more than 5 degrees. Localizer or glide slope flags show when the related display fails. The related deviation scale is also removed. The message Displays Control Panel shows with a failure of the EFIS control panel. If the attitude display fails, the display is removed and the attitude flag shows. Altitude shows on a vertical display. The altitude tape and digital readout show altitude in feet. The minimums pointer shows the approach minimum altitude set by the minimums selector on the EFIS control panel. A numeric display also shows. You use the minimums reference selector to show approach minimum altitude as a barometric reference or a radio altitude reference.
Minimums.
The approach minimums reference and numeric display turn amber and flash as the airplane descends below the selected minimum altitude. The cross-hatched area indicates the altitude for the runway of departure or destination from the FMC. Push the reset switch on the minimums selector. When the airplane is above the selected altitude, the numeric display is removed. The barometric setting is shown in either inches of mercury or hectopascals as set on the EFIS control panel. Push the standard switch. Standard shows when you push the standard switch. If you push the switch again, the previous setting is shown. Altitude information is shown in meters when the meters switch is pushed on the EFIS control panel. Push the meters switch again to remove the display. The altitude alert is steady for altitude acquisition. And flashes during altitude deviation. Altitude alert is discussed in detail in a different lesson. A failure flag is shown when the altimeter fails. All altimeter displays are removed except the altitude alert and the barometric setting readout. The vertical speed indicator, or VSI, shows instantaneous vertical speed. The VSI shows rate of climb or descent from 0 to 6,000 feet per minute. When climbing at a rate greater than 400 feet per minute, a digital rate display is located above the vertical speed indication. When descending at greater than 400 feet per minute, the rate is displayed below the vertical speed indication. The magenta index shows the vertical speed selected on the MCP when vertical speed is engaged. The failure flag is shown and the pointer is removed when vertical speed fails.